Three, two, one. Hello, everyone, and hello, Sam Vaghar, and to the fourth episode of the Leading Mindset program. And we're really happy to have you here today. And I was going through your experiences, is all like really remarkable. And we want to start with Millennium Campus Network, and you are the executive director. Can you tell us more?
Yeah. Well, Ali, thanks for having me on.
Sure.
And I think I just want to say it's so cool how we met.
Yeah.
I mean, for everyone listening, watching, meeting at Earth Cafe and just by serendipity and never be afraid to talk to anyone.
Yeah.
And here we are now. So my journey began really when I was 19. When I was 19 years old, I read two books that changed my life. One was Mountains Beyond Mountains, about a doctor named Paul Farmer and an organization, Partners in Health. And the other was a book, The End of Poverty, by an economist, Jeffrey Sachs. Mm-hmm. Those two books really elucidated for me the fact that a tenth of humanity, over 700 million people, live in extreme poverty every day. Mm-hmm. On less than $1.90 a day. But there are also things big and small we can do to respond to the crisis. So when I was 19, put down those books, picked up the phone, cold called this world famous economist, Jeffrey Sachs, went to New York City 2 days later, met with his team. I said, I'm a college sophomore. I don't have many answers, but I know our generation can do more. Mm-hmm. And I want to figure out what small role we might play in tackling extreme poverty and advancing at the United Nations. They have the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And came back to campus, started small-scale public health fundraisers. Then in 2007, brought student leaders together from across the city of Boston. And we said, look, we're all focused on global development and justice, but we're doing this work in silos. Those silos minimize impact, minimize diffusion of knowledge. Mm-hmm. What would happen if we teamed up? 6 months later, had our first conference at MIT. 1,000 student leaders show up from around the world with Paul Farmer, Jeff Sachs, John Legend, head of USAID, Paul, Jeff, and John join our board of advisors. And they said, Sam, we're in. Like, let's help build this student network on poverty. I said, I'm 20 years old. I'm not quite sure what this is yet, but let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
And we just celebrated at Millennium Campus Network, MCN, our 10th anniversary. Training young leaders to make a difference in their communities. Over 6,000 alumni so far, and 75% of them are now in social impact careers, making a difference through the work they do.
Well, that's really great. Well, what about the upcoming program that you told me about?
Yeah, so the big one is last year, it means so much to us. Last year, we partnered with the United Nations Academic Impact on the Millennium Fellowship. Mm-hmm. And it's a semester-long program, 10 sessions. We're giving young people the training, the support system, the credentials for them to go make a difference in their communities. So whether it was students in Central Michigan tackling food insecurity through aquaponics farming, or students in Saudi Arabia closing the gender gap in STEM, it's all students leading change on the grassroots level. And so we've set up the Millennium Fellowship again for 2019. MillenniumFellows.org, 2 N's in Millennium, MillenniumFellows.org. Mm-hmm. And we've had 3,500 young leaders apply so far. Our goal is 5,000 by the end of May. And again, it's an opportunity this fall for any undergraduate worldwide to really take their impact to the next level.
Great. Why did you choose the undergrad?
Yeah, it's a great question. Part of it is because
that's the main focus of the organization.
Yeah. So for MCN, part of it is personal. Mm-hmm. That's where I found my voice. I was really, really shy growing up. I had two friends in high school. I had one date all 4 years of high school. So I really didn't kind of have my voice and identity until college. And this work really helped me find myself. So for all these young people around the world in college who maybe were like me, I want to be there to support them and meet them where they are. And then the other piece is, I think, beyond me, looking at the history of how the world has changed, especially recent history, in the civil rights movement here in the U.S., and climate justice movement, in the movement to end apartheid. And I'm going to South Africa next month, so it's kind of front of mind. In the mid-1980s, and this is before Facebook and before social, right? There were 155 campuses that were mobilizing to divest from South Africa during apartheid. At UC Berkeley alone, there were 7,000 students rallying, saying divest from that government. As a result of that work, Congressman Dellums had the political capital to overturn a presidential veto on sanctions. It's the first time that happened on a foreign policy veto in the 20th century, and that was driven by young people. So young people alone don't change the world. Intergenerational movements do. But we know that just really giving basic investment in young people, it's a cost-effective way to do leadership development for nonprofits and for social impact organizations. And historically, it's what's created outsized impact in our world. So we want to do more of that.
Great. What do you think of the when you see maybe the younger generation, maybe they are getting it wrong sometimes, even like influenced by maybe like the entertainment industries or like the social medias, So because your point is to train and educate undergrads to not face the issues that they might face in the future, So do you think that maybe even we can train like the older people? I mean, like the maybe who are like in 30s, or 40s?
Yeah. Two points on that. One is, yes. There's a Millennium fellow I was meeting with at Arizona State last week, and she said, look, everyone is a teacher everywhere. And I think likewise, everyone is a student everywhere. The key is to be an adaptive leader. And constantly at Becker College, they talk about creating an agile mindset. Everything is changing so rapidly now. So I think it's essential that, we do leadership training for every demographic at every age. Just to be prepared to engage meaningfully in a global economy. I think that's it is essential today.
Yeah. And your next stop would be in Dubai, right?
Yeah. The Al Ghurair Foundation.
Right.
Yeah. So meeting with them next month. Really excited for that because I know they've done a lot in the education space. So it'll be a great opportunity. It's my second time there. And we know there are a lot of young leaders in the region passionate about creating impact in their communities and really want to see if we can meet them where they're at and really support their work.
And even there are a lot of programs going on in different like Dubai universities to educate or like encourage, the people or like the younger generations to be a leader or learn how to, let's say, start a business or learn educate more, on the different topics. So that I think would be a really, really good opportunities based on what I was experienced when I was living in Dubai.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about that. I'm really excited about that too, especially because part of our curriculum for the fellowship is skills development. So teaching young people how to lead with empathy, humility, inclusion, but also how to write a budget, how to create SMART goals, how to manage teams, some of the fundamentals, whether you're going to start a business, a nonprofit, if you want to be an entrepreneur, these are some of the key fundamentals to get right in your formative years. And that's the kind of training we provide.
Don't you think that these topics should be included in like every courses at universities?
No. No.
Why? Because the point is we're going to have a lot of like workshops for the, let's say, undergrad, right? As you do. But what about the role of the universities for the education though? Because we don't have any like leadership subjects at the universities.
So the reason I say no is I think it would be incredible. But did you ever read this book called The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell? Yeah. So he talks about how social movements are built, how things change, and there's always like your early adopters, your late adopters. I don't think we need every student on every campus to have the same kind of cookie cutter experience, nor do I think every student cares. And I think the key is before we try and solve for everybody, let's really support the early adopters. Let's support those students who are already inclined to make a difference, help build community with them, get them linked up so they in turn can go engage all their peers. Once that's happening, then I think it makes sense.
They start encouraging others.
Exactly. That's like, I think it's more grassroots, bottom up. I mean, you could do it through the entire curriculum at University of California, Davis. They're actually doing a new initiative, Global Education for All, where they're making sure every student at Davis has some global experience, not necessarily study abroad, but through the curriculum, through co-curriculars. And I think that's great. But yeah, I just wouldn't want it to be, for lack of better words, mandated. I think it's got to really come from within.
Yeah, that's true. What about your role as an advisor to the executive director of United Nations Women?
Yeah, it's an incredible experience. So I started going to the United Nations when I was 19, and really just to kind of listen and learn. And at the UN, they have these 17 sustainable development goals to be accomplished by 2030, tackling poverty and discrimination and climate change. And so for me, one of the learnings along this journey is connected with the team at UN Women. It's the youngest agency, the least funded agency, but probably doing some of the most important work on gender equity. And we've seen, I mean, sitting here in LA in an era of Me Too, and this is like now in the conversation, but I'm one of 12 leaders from civil society advising the executive director, and I think I'm at this point, I think I'm the only male and one of the youngest. So a lot of the other leaders have been doing feminist movement building for decades. I'm really just there to listen and learn, and then think about how we bring more young people into these conversations, into these movements, and especially young men, because a lot of us, I think, we just aren't really taught how to treat other, all genders with dignity, and we're definitely not taught it from most of us in the classroom, and so we kind of perpetuate a lot of the sexism that is prevalent in many cultures of the world, and so anything that I can do to try and bring young people, and especially young men, into those conversations, just to like listen and learn, and then think about how we change our own personal behavior, and then as a society, how we try and make the world a little bit more equal and fair in terms of tackling sexism. Look, that's gender parity, gender equity. I mean, these are the things that I think underpin all the sustainable development goals, and really, like, at the end of the day, it's what matters most, like in households, on a family basis, like at a very personal level. And so that's why I'm really honored just to play a small role in the movement.
That's really great. I read one of the articles that I think Dean's interview with you for your 30th birthday, and you pointed to 5 important factors. One is the family, integrity, power, and it can end soon, and love. Let's talk about these points, because I think what I believe is to actually make sure that you are looking after all these points can again make you successful, and make me maybe for the self-awareness, then to be able to understand and to find the impact that you wanted to have, in the world. Let's start with family. Like, how do you see this?
It's the key. I get to do what I do because I have an incredible family that is deeply supportive. That always, one of the things they always did for me was, and it's rare, but they put me and my brother first. So our parents would kind of model for us unconditional love, and what it meant to put somebody else first who's not you. And that's been really, really meaningful. And so I think, and then part of it is like just wanting to live up to the values that they set. They've always set a really high standard for me. And even my dad said, like, hey, if you go make a ton of money, like, it doesn't matter. He actually, since we're Persian, he references Omar Khayyam,
Yeah.
and there's like a quote that says, "In 100 years, none of this will matter."
Mhm.
So he always kind of reminded me why we're here,
Yeah.
and it really kind of, I think, set me up to do this work.
Do you think it's important for everyone to remind this every day to themselves?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's hard though, right? Because a lot of people don't have that kind of family.
Mhm.
That's probably the biggest gift I have in my life is the family that I've been given, and so.
Because I think the family gonna be a factor that can motivate you or teach you stuff.
Yeah.
Even if they don't have a supportive family, they have to remind it themselves.
Yeah, no, that's
This is what I really believe in terms of the mindset of people. Is
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what is going on or around you in terms of your friends or your family. If you have bad friends or your bad family who are not supporting you, even if you're in a bad society or a country, but the point is you can have that impact. You can make changes.
That's true, and that's a great point, Ali. And it's, to your point, that's where things start. I mean, if you can help have a positive impact with your parents, with your guardians, with your siblings, like start there.
Yeah.
That's where really all the change will begin.
Because that's how all these civil movements started.
Yeah.
If any of those people would say oh yeah, this society is really bad, we cannot make changes. I mean, nobody's supporting me. But they step up and they become a leader, and then they start changing everything, and start people that were following them.
Yeah.
Even though the people who are not supporting them, after they see their movements or the work that they're putting in place, they start following them. That's really good. And what about the integrity though that you put that?
What did I say? I'm trying to remember.
You said I have tried very hard to live out my values of respect and appreciation of the people. I've made mistakes. I've said the wrong things to people and have been silent as people around me have as well. I have hurt people, honestly. I don't think with malice, but even with my best intentions, I have made mistakes. I'm human.
Yeah.
I'm very important to be honest about this, and I work to learn more and improve.
Yeah. To me, we are human.
Yeah.
We're fallible. We make mistakes. The key is just to recognize that, accept it, learn from them, apologize when you make a mistake, own it. I think it's something that, again, it's really hard to do, but living your values. There's a mentor who said to me, she said, more important than anything is to live a life in congruence with your values. And if you can do that, then you're probably 80% of the way there, because there will be distractions, there will be things that could take you off track. But if you know what your North Star is, and for me, my North Star is really helping young people own their voice and their power to make a difference. That's why I'm on the planet. That's what I want to spend my life doing. So once you have that North Star and you have values aligned with that, to lead with empathy and humility and inclusion and always be open, then it's very it becomes a lot easier to think about how you want to spend your days and who you want to be around to get where you want to go.
That's great. Something that we talked in second episode, I guess, with Mark Gustafson, is the CEO of Spin Lister. That was, he said, as an entrepreneur, you should always leave your ego out the door. And we talk about how hard it would be now, maybe for the younger generation. Because of the city, especially in LA, there's a lot of ego going on. So all of this that I'm trying to do again in helping people, because I see a lot of young entrepreneurs or even the individuals who wants to have an impact. They want to do something, but they get really distracted by a lot of stuff. So when we talk about the integrity or responsibility, these are the authenticity, something that accountability one. These are the things that I think we should more work on every day, because it might not be achievable.
And I'll just say this: being in LA, LA is a very unique space. I was on the beach in Venice yesterday, and I see models taking photos everywhere. You look left, you look right. There's someone with a photographer. At the muscle gym, whatever, and on the beach, and so it's the impact of and influence of social media, especially in a place like LA, is pretty prevalent. But I also spent time this week with really some like friends of friends and becoming friends with them. These former amazing group called the Vlog Squad. They're former Vine stars who became YouTube stars, and some of them are now musicians, and they collectively reach millions and millions of people. But what's amazing to me is, even though like some of their stuff, obviously like they have to have fun with it, and I mean that's how you reach millions and millions of people, but there's such depth there. Like I've talked to some of them about their love for animals and animal rights, and and just learned about like their passion for homelessness and the different issues that really underpin who they are as people. And so I think there is a lot of opportunity to be distracted, but what's cool is that like when you really get to know people across a space, everybody has a passion. Everyone has something that makes them tick, where they want to make some kind of impact. And I think it's just kind of creating the space to have an honest conversation with yourself, and then, you know, as you network, really asking people like, so what's your passion? Like, why are you here? And then, you know, what kind of mark do you want to make on the world? And I think everybody's got something a little bit bigger than just themselves or even their career.
Yeah. That's a huge topic that we'll talk about. It. Let's finish the fourth one that you say it can't end too soon.
I had a friend who passed away at 26, and he was a friend and colleague, and so it was really difficult, really difficult to go through that experience. And actually, and there was somebody I just met yesterday. His name is Quarantine, friend of a friend. He was in a hit and run here in LA, like just going across a crosswalk, and somebody hit him, and so, you know, he's doing, I think, a lot better now, but it was in, you know, critical condition in the hospital for, you know, weeks. And yeah, I mean, and that was just, he was going on a crosswalk and the car ran a red light, boom, hit him. So literally in a moment, everything can change. So I think it really is important just to appreciate life, and just the fact that, like, if you know, if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, like in these moments, like it's a gift, it's precious, and we should make the most of it.
Exactly. Did it happen to you? Anything like that?
No, I think the one thing would be, I guess the one thing, nothing to that extreme, but when I was 11 years old, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. Which is like an inflammation of the intestine, and it started like in summer camp, and I just it's like, I mean, maybe TMI, but like I was in summer camp, I'm 11 years old, go to the bathroom, and there's like blood in the toilet, and I'm like, what is going on? And then went home, and after camp, after a couple of weeks, and would get fevers every night, and then it started to actually hurt to eat food. Like I couldn't eat. Even smelling food made my stomach hurt. So I was diagnosed with Crohn's, which is a chronic condition, like, you know, lifelong. And I had to, for 2 months, I had to have a liquid diet, no food. So 2 months was just like these Ensure drinks, protein drinks that like older people drink sometimes. I had 8 of these a day, strawberry, vanilla. I remember I just keep switching on 8 of those a day for 2 months, no food. But thankfully, like, my health has been great, especially for the past decade. So again, like, part of it's a conversation about equity. I'm in Boston is like home, and we've got some of the best hospitals in the world, and so, you know, I get the best care, and so I'm okay. But how do we ensure that more people, you know, get that kind of support? Because everyone deserves it.
That's great. And the last is love.
Yeah.
Which is an important topic for even entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I think so. Broadly speaking, it's about, you know, work-life balance and making sure, making sure you look after yourself. And probably when I posted that on my 30th, I'm 32 now, so when I posted that on my 30th, it was, I was dating somebody long distance who who I love,
Mm.
and
Your birthday, I think.
I was, and then we split up. But actually, we're talking, so I'm actually gonna go see her soon.
Mm.
So we'll see what happens. But but I think just what's been cool about it, to be in love or to have that kind of connection, is just to find somebody you can really trust and really be yourself around,
Mhm.
and be silly with. Because as an entrepreneur, I mean, any entrepreneur listening knows it is hard.
Yeah.
It can be really stressful, and so to have somebody that you can really confide in,
Mhm.
I think it's made all.
But that's hard to find.
Yeah.
Because for entrepreneurs, there's a lot of like sacrifices. You know, they might be able to time you're depressed. You know, the stress, or let's say you're traveling, you will not be around. So that would be even though harder maybe for people maybe to understand it sometimes. You know, or maybe they get hurt,
Yeah.
but you don't mean to hurt them. But this is what you're doing as an entrepreneur. So even though the like a mutual understanding of what is going on,
Mhm.
you know, there should be something, because even though not only like someone who you're dating, but even family members, you know, your friends, they might get upset because you cannot go out every day or every weekend. Maybe so now it's Sunday that you're here. So maybe, you know, my friends get like upset, like, oh, let's go for lunch, you know. But no, I have a podcast program, you know, I have to work there.
Sorry.
That's fine, but we're here, you know. Sunday, I'm really like enjoying it, and so that's great. Another thing that you point out that I really like is the never be afraid to talk to anyone. This is exactly how we met, though. You know, right? I was sitting at the Art Cafe with my friends, and then we just came, just wanted to get a chair, you know, just sat, and then we started talking. What do you say about this to people? I mean, like, we're listening here.
Yeah. So when I was 18, I was walking on the street in the bitter cold in January in Washington, D.C. I came across a man who was homeless, and normally I would just walk right by, or I would, you know, pretend I was on my phone, just so I don't have to look the person in the eye. It's almost like you pretend someone who's homeless doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
And in this one instance, I decided to do something different. So I sat down and we shared lunch on the sidewalk for like 45 minutes,
Mhm.
and 20 minutes into the conversation, I remember I just said, like, you know, I don't know your lived experience, but if I'm able to ask you like one question,
Mm-hmm.
I said, like, if I'm able to ask you just one question, how do you survive?
Mm-hmm.
And he looked back at me and he said, and he looked at the passerby and he said, I'm not afraid to talk to anyone. I'm not afraid to look up at those above me and ask for help.
Mm.
Never be afraid to talk to anyone.
Mm.
And this advice, never be afraid to talk to anyone, it's the best piece of advice I've received in 32 years of life. And to me, that's so powerful because it came from someone who's homeless,
Mm-hmm.
who society would say is less than,
Yeah.
is, you know, a drain on society, doesn't have anything to offer. And in fact, he taught me more than anybody with 45 minutes of my life. And so I've applied that in meeting with world leaders and launching an organization and just having the courage to, you know, like even hanging out with these YouTube stars and people who are not in my world, etc.
Mhm.
But I'm like, I have like more confidence just because I'm like, hey, like we have a cause, we've got important work to be done, and never be afraid, right? Like when you do reach out, look what happens.
Yeah, I would say people should have like more eager to understand each other and to like more, even they have more time to talk to each other and learn from each other's experiences and see like what the other side is going through, or try to help if they can. So it happened to me once. I was sitting in an Uber, and then I asked the same thing because exactly wherever I go, I ask the people, I'm like, what do you do? What did you do before? I mean, like, what do you think? I mean, what are you going to do? So he was really experienced. So even like I invited him after a talk for the company, you know, I said like maybe you can help us in some way, and that was a really really great conversation. Even though, as you said, I mean, with the homeless persons, I did it before, like here when I go, like buy something, a drink, when I see some of them, I ask them, I mean, what happened or what do you think? So that's gonna really, really open up a conversation, and you get a lot from those people, from everyone, you know. So, and then a lot of situations, maybe you're looking for something for months, and then maybe you met that person a lot every day or every week, but you haven't like talked to them. So this is something that I really, really experienced. And when I start like talking to people, then I find out, oh, this is something that he can help me, you know, or she can help me with that, and there is something that I really could like help them, you know, to achieve. So that's something again in terms of the mindset of people. Sometimes I see maybe people are more busy or maybe not careless, you know, to talk to each other or help each other out. So this is something again in terms of like encouraging people to more talk to each other.
What I would say to that is everybody, like almost not everybody, but probably 80 to 90, a lot of people, a majority, many people have time. They'll say they're busy, but that's because time is our most precious asset.
Yeah.
So people are very protective of their time, and if you're introverted, maybe you don't want to meet 20 million people, maybe, you know, but everybody can make time if it's for a cause they believe in or somebody that they believe in. So I think it's just about us having the courage to make the ask. And yeah, more often than not, I've found that when I've had that courage, it opens so many doors, so many opportunities that are all around us. And I mean, I'm privileged to be able to do this work, and but like we you know, we all have that opportunity to reach out to anybody. And I love what you said about, you know, also how can you be helpful to the other person, because a lot of times, especially entrepreneurs, whether you're seeking investment or you're trying to staff up or whatever it is, it's like, I need this. Yeah. Ron Cordes from Cordes Foundation, he taught me in any meeting to always ask, it's 5 magic words. How can I help you? So always ask that in any meeting, even if the answer is no, like nothing. But it just shows you actually value the other person and their experience and their time, and maybe there are ways you can be helpful too.
Yeah, help them without the expectation. I mean, that's something that I say. And I mentioned before, even at LookinLA, we have the same mission though. You know, we did over 30 workshops, free consultations, because I met a lot of the young entrepreneurs who maybe doesn't have the money for the consultation, and because of a lot of materials online, maybe they'll get lost, so we did a lot of like this free consultation for the business owners to say like, hey, what are you doing in terms of like business strategy, in terms of like digital marketing strategy. So we tried to really help them save them money a lot, because they were like investing in many other platforms that would say like it's not the right fit for you. So again, without the expectation, this is something that I really wanted to see from everyone, and we are always like encouraging them.
And that's a big part of why I'm sitting here with you, is when I heard about what you're doing with LookinLA and your commitment to leadership development for the space. Again, with no expectation of anything, maybe it helps grow business, and maybe it doesn't. Maybe you're just doing something good for the space. But that kind of mentality and approach, like, I just love that. We need so much more of that in every space, in every industry. And I think, you all look at LookinLA, you're leading in that. So thanks for what you do.
Thank you. Sure. Well, thank you for what you do. Like your experiences and your goal. To educate undergrads. That's really, really great. And then how many? You said like how many members do you have now?
So we just hit a milestone, which is we just hit just over 6,000 alumni of our program so far, from 300 campuses around the world. And and so just in the last year, Ali, we had 402 Millennium Fellows graduate our program. They volunteered nearly 50,000 hours on 217 projects. And they positively impacted the lives of 393,449 people in 13 countries.
Wow.
That's a movement. And so, it's been really powerful to see that. And our goal this year is to even up it to graduate 1,000 Millennium Fellows this fall and have them positively impact up to 1 million lives.
So based on your experiences, what would you say to people who wants to do the same? or to have this impact, so how they can start these movements. Let's say they wanted to have like this kind of like impact in terms of like education, awareness, but they don't know how to start.
Don't start, come work with us. Right? Like, no, I mean, especially like for nonprofits, I think one of the challenges, and for the social sector in general, one of the challenges is everyone wants to be founder, executive director, president, etc. The world doesn't need that. We don't need 20 million new organizations. We need like a few really effective ones, and
it's more collaboration.
Yeah, a robust ecosystem where we do really put ego aside and talk about solving problems. That's why if you're about causes, you're about solving problems and adding, and even beyond that, a frame I like much more, adding value. If you're about adding value in people's lives, then it shouldn't be about like, oh, we run this thing and I run that thing, but we don't really know if we don't measure success, or we don't really track our volunteers or alumni. Like we could be so much more effective through collaboration, and that would be my advice: is seek out organizations doing things on the causes you already care about. And then if you really do identify a gap, like we did specifically for undergraduates and their leadership development, for creating social impact and making a difference, then yes, go for it. But do your homework first. Make sure that there is really a gap. Otherwise, work with those already doing the work every day.
But something I would say is maybe the reason that people wants to have a new organization or just start their own maybe nonprofit, I would say one reason would be the negativity or the bad news in the world will be spread more. So we are less aware of the work that the people like you are doing. So spread the positivity is something that we need more, So through the social media, when you turn on any like news channels, you cannot even watch it. So nobody came to like all these news channels and says like, yeah, there's Sam Vaghar who's like doing this stuff. Join him or join the other organizations that doing this work, Or even in the social media, we see like more. I'm not saying that we cannot see or we don't see any like positivity, but there's more like negativity going on around. Because I would say the people who are like doing a great job, maybe they are way more busy to get involved. That's why I think we have less positivity. Like going around. So maybe people don't see the value of this organization.
I think like part of it is negativity sells. There's no question, right? People love controversy. I read this book recently, Sapiens. It's an incredible read, and it talks about the history of humanity, the fact that the universe is 13.8 billion years old, humans 2.5 million years old. And then in the book, they talk about a cognitive revolution 70,000 years ago. That's when we really kind of were able to communicate and interact how we are today, just through like some of that development. And one of the oldest elements of humanity is gossip. And part of it was actually used to kind of like, suss out like who's actually helpful and who's not. But I think now it's kind of to the point where, everyone's just trying to tear each other down because it's what sells. But that's why I love this podcast. You're actually shining a light on what can be done and what is positive and what is really like the right mindset or mindsets to create that impact. And frankly, there are some people out there if you're willing to look. One of our advisors at MCN, his name is Naz. He has a Facebook platform called Naz Daily. He made 60-second videos for 1,000 days. So, about 3 years, going all over the world and telling positive.
I know him.
Yeah, and so 12 million followers, and
he's great.
And it's like all positive and connecting people and breaking down like barriers and divisions based on race or geography, and just helping people really empathize and understand each other.
Great. So let's also see you were involved as an expert reviewer at Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
Yeah, it's been special just to because now I'm a decade in, so the Gates Foundation, among others, like they come to me sometimes and they'll say, can you review applications and people specifically around youth leadership, because that's what I focus a lot on. It's been really meaningful just to kind of have the opportunity to weigh in, because a decade in, you kind of get a sense of, like you learn from mistakes. I've made a lot of mistakes, so at least now I know those and I can look out for those. And you kind of get a sense of, especially when like reviewing any kind of application of a young person, I think the key is, or really anybody, for any entrepreneur, if you're like an investor and you're taking a look, like the key is, do they have an agile mindset? Like, are they open to growing? Do they admit that they don't know, that they don't have all the answers, but that they're hungry to learn? I think that's more important than saying, oh, we have like this perfect business plan. Everything, if we follow this trajectory, this hockey stick, everything will be super successful. It's hard. It's hard to promise that. I think the key is like the key honestly is more about just really assessing, like, are you open? Are you open to understanding the world around you? Are you open to understanding yourself and why you're doing what you're doing? If you are, you have, I think, a much higher likelihood of success. And those are the kinds of leaders I think we need to be investing in.
And then accept what you said about accepting your mistakes, that you did mistakes.
Yeah.
And sometimes I see people that they are even afraid of accepting their mistakes. Maybe, they are afraid, but the point is always you can learn about that.
I'm sure you've just been perfect and you've made no mistakes, but
No, I do too. The point is, someone asked me about how do you make a decision in a company. So I would say, like, you can't say that, I'm always right, because you have to be right in the moment that you make that decision, that you think that's the best choice that you are going with.
Yeah.
Maybe after a month or maybe after like 2 weeks, you find out, okay, now there is a way to improve that decision.
Yeah.
Or maybe you did make the wrong decision, and then it has a negative impact even on your company, but you have to be always monitoring the results to make sure, okay, now this is the time to change it. So there is no shame. What would I say? There is no shame for your mistakes. So you can probably say, I did this 5 mistakes over last year. Now I'm working on it.
I probably did like 30 mistakes, but I think
over last year.
I think like one thing that's it's so fundamental. I mean, just being honest. I think like once you're honest with yourself, then you can be honest with others. And like one of the things we're adding in our impact report is actually where we failed last year, what changes, and then what worked, what didn't, and what changes we're going to make for the Millennium Fellowship this year based on failures last year. I think it's so important to be that open and transparent, because then you can really be accountable for managing to outcomes and actually making yourself better.
Yeah, that's true. And there are a lot of like points that we discussed in the podcast during the last episodes. Like the one was Mark talked about the ego and never quit. And I was like saying, always you have to learn. Another with Ben, who's the business development manager at the LA Chamber of Commerce. He pointed out the importance of self-awareness. What would you say? Like 2 years ago, you pointed out to 5 of them.
Yeah. I mean,
if you want to point out like 3 most important, let's say.
Well, from an MCN standpoint, we definitely talk a lot about values. When we say empathy, humility, and inclusion, what those values are, empathy is really about understanding other people, not just sympathizing, but really trying to understand other people. So not to judge other people, or if you have an employee who's going through something and you want to judge them because they're not delivering on a result, but maybe you're actually trying to understand them, not just as an employee, but as a human being, what is going on in their personal life or outside of the office, and how do you help manage them so they can reach the goals that they've set. Humility, again, not having all the answers and knowing, like, I know that I don't know, and that's healthy. And inclusion, because there are so many people who are left out, are marginalized for a whole host of reasons, but it boils down to discrimination in many forms. And and I don't think, I mean, it's clear that like when you look at who's running Fortune 500s, et cetera, like there are a lot of voices that aren't at the board level or at the C-suite level. There are a lot of it's glaring that, I mean, it's very obvious. And so inclusion, really thinking about how do we create organizations, companies, movements that actually accurately represent and reflect the communities that we're engaging. That's not an easy thing to do. It means sometimes, like for me as a white male from Boston, it means sometimes going into spaces and actually just like not being the first to talk. Like I was conditioned to always raise my hand and give my opinion and it matters. No, like maybe just sit back and listen first and try and understand. Maybe there's other people who would take a minute before they raise their hand. Make sure everyone really has the opportunity to share and don't dominate everything. And I think those have been really key for us at MCN and for me personally. What about for you?
Well, again, I mean, the same, I think we have the same, like kind of mindset in terms of like helping people. That would be the same thing. I was always not really trying to not talk and listen to the people when we are in the meeting or like in the conferences. I would in the conferences or the seminars or like let's say the presentation, I really wanted to have more Q&A rather than me talking. I wanted to say like, okay, now these are the topics, these are what I know and how I can help you or to like increase the education, I mean like the awareness of the topics. But I would say like, yeah, let's do more Q&A. Let's hear from you guys, because if I stand here and talk, it would be maybe another like boring like lecture, or like the presentation for the next 2 hours. So I would say like, yeah, what is your problem? I was a guest speaker at the LA Chamber of Commerce, and I was talking about the improving your business and marketing using intelligent tools. So everyone was expecting to have like another, like I call it a boring presentations, because I witnessed some of them that it takes like 4 hours, but there's no point. And then when I started, I was like going through in the slides or like explaining the tools, how this tool work, how it can help you. And then I was asking the audience that, what do you sell? And then like I was showing him live that how he can improve his business. I was like, yeah, you're going to these tools, you use like the other tools, to find out like your target audience, their behaviors, their interests. This is how you can. And then the next one. So what is your problem? What are you selling? What is your services? So I would say helping others, I mean like the value that we can give to others, that would be the first thing. Even for companies to start a conversation, it would really better to see that they are actually like giving us a value or adding to, add a value to the company, and we can add a value to their companies. And then let's start talking about the business or something after that. But my mind, one of the main concern is trying to not only increase the awareness in terms of the leadership and the business strategy, for the people, but also to kind of change the mindset or improving the mindset. Because what I see based on my experiences talking to people and business owners, or executives, is I would say I heard a quote that says like people mainly don't have a business problem, they have a personal problem. And I mentioned this in the podcast before. So I think it's really easy if you know your problems, your personal issues, your, let's say, if you have a lack of like responsibility or, you can address that and you can read about it. Just read about it buy a book, use the social media again to read about this stuff and then try and solve it. So what I'm trying to do is find out the main, let's say, the issues that the people, especially entrepreneurs, can solve in order to solve their business issues as well. So what about you? I mean, like when you started, I mean, because when you're talking about the integrity, family, love, support, talk to everyone, this is a complete set of the great mindset. So it's really hard for someone to achieve in this level, maybe like very soon. Maybe it takes time for all of us. Maybe like 10 years ago, I was not the same as today, in terms of the mindset. We all went through all this, but we learned, and then we've been being honest with each other and ourselves. So we really improved this mindset. So this is the thing that I really trying to encourage people to improve your mindset, understand the problems, being honest with yourself and others,
Yeah.
and then start improving this.
Yeah.
What do you say? I mean, like when you started at the age of 19,
Mm.
you know, so you read those books, and then how did you keep up?
In terms of mindset specifically, I think finding great mentors, finding people around you who've been through some of the challenges that you're going to go through,
Yeah.
learning from them, just having a really kind of safe space to ask honest, questions and get honest answers. Honestly, because I started so young in this work, I mean, I learned a lot by trial and error. I learned a lot by making mistakes. I think part of the mindset was to say, all right, I've made this mistake. I own it. How do I avoid doing it again? Part of it was also like just maturity that came with doing work over time and realizing like, there are things that I need to be better at in terms of managing people or managing my time to really deliver on results. And part of it was also like acceptance. As you get older, just kind of also embracing there's idiosyncrasies and aspects of you that make you who you are. I know that for me, personally, like I love sometimes working late into the night and starting the day a little bit later. That's me. Well, I was always taught, 9 to 5 is the exact thing to do. Maybe, but maybe not. And so like, finding what works best for you and your organization and being a bit flexible, I think is really healthy. As long as you're reaching the goals that you've set, I think that's the key. And then part of the mindset, that really shifted for me too was, I think a key piece of it for me was really around accountability. So kind of just wiring my mind to start thinking about not just like the next week or next month, but the next year, 3 years, 5 years, where we want to be. Just opening up your mind to something larger and then reverse engineering from there and saying, okay, if this is where we want to be 3 to 5 years from now, 12 months from now, how do we get there? 6 months, a quarter, a month, a week, a day.
Reverse engineering though.
Yeah, exactly. That but I didn't think about it like that 10 years ago.
I know.
But now, right, like when you're creating a really robust business plan and strategic plan, you're always thinking like, all right, this is where we want to go. It may go in a bit of a different direction, but we need to kind of, reverse engineer and think about, and just opening your mind up through a process like that. I think that's helped me really kind of think a little bit bigger about possibilities for myself, for MCN, for Millennium Fellows, and where we go next.
And where do you want to go next in 10 years, let's say?
So our big dream.
So from organization point of view, and also your personal belief in terms of like changing or the impact. Yeah. What impact do you want it to have? I mean, like to achieve in 10 years?
Yeah, I mean, for us, obviously, we're training young people. We're training and uniting young people, making a difference in their own communities. So for us, we've set a goal by 2025 to train 25,000 young leaders. And it will end up being annual class sizes of 5,000 young leaders worldwide going through the Millennium Fellowship, becoming Millennium Fellows. The reason we set this goal is we looked at programs like the Peace Corps, Teach for America, some of these large organizations. Everyone thinks, I ask all the time, people will say, oh, the Peace Corps is like, 50,000 people doing it a year. Teach for America, 100,000. The Peace Corps is 7,300 a year each cycle, and Teach for America is 5,000. They're relatively small, but even with these small organizations, they became household names, helped shift narrative, public policy. And so we really want to do that at the undergraduate level, where people know Millennium Fellows as a trusted source of talent, known to employers, to funders, to graduate schools, and they're coming for this talent. And so, if we can make it a little bit easier for these young leaders to be elevated, whether they're at, a Cornell or a Georgetown or Penn, or whether they're at Alma College or Miami-Dade College, elite schools, non-elite schools, doesn't matter. Like, as long as you're committed to making an impact, we want you to share in our network, our identity, and we want to support you in taking your work to the next level. So 25,000 young leaders trained by 2025. That's the big goal right now that we're really laser focused on.
That's really, really great. And we're also going to include all the description, I mean, all the links to your organizations and blogs, about it on the description, so people can click and learn more about it. Something also I remember was when we talk about the impact. I read an article and listened to the lecture from Simon Sinek about the millennials and the way that they wanted to have an impact. But one of the issues that he pointed out is the lack of patience. So I would say the lack of patience now is like, because everything is really, really happening really fast now in our worlds in terms of because of the technology. So maybe people are losing their faith in patience. This is what I would say. But how did you keep up with that? Because it's like over 10 years with organization, right?
Yeah, it's hard. It is really hard. I saw this study. It said U.S. Department of Labor, if this is accurate, they said by age 40, millennials on average will have 15 different jobs. 15. I've had one. So I'm it's an anomaly. Like what I'm doing is a bit unusual, and to be with something for this long as a millennial is a bit unusual. But yeah, and a lot of people have said to me, because nonprofits in general, it can be hard, or being an entrepreneur can be hard. A lot of friends say, Sam, leave this, go do other things. You can make a lot more money. You can be more successful. At some point, I probably will go into politics. I think that ultimately will be where I go. But I've been so invested in this and had patience because I know that real enduring change doesn't happen overnight. Like the movement to end apartheid, to change government system in South Africa, like that took a couple generations, like it took decades. And even that was fast. Slavery in the United States, like these things don't happen, like that. It's the process of movement building and getting enough early adopters and then late adopters and getting everyone on board a movement and with a shared message. Who are willing to put in the work time and time again. One of my frustrations, to be honest with you, is and I think part of it is because of social media. We're very much drawn, and maybe social media is just kind of mirroring it, but we're very much drawn into moments rather than movements. So like whatever that moment might be, it captures our attention for 24 hours, and it gets a lot of, and then people move on to the next thing and on to the next thing. I think it's so important to build infrastructure for whatever cause or whatever, your company is like, stay committed to that thing so that when those moments happen, you've got something built in already to take it.
I would say if you are committed, or if you are following and chasing your vision and the value, that would be really easy, to wait for it and have a patience. But if you are really chasing only the money or, those, being famous or this stuff, so I would say you might lose your patience because you don't expect a lot of like issues on the way or the problems on the way, and then you lose your control, and then you lose your patience, and then you change your job, you change your company. Even though not only from the entrepreneur's point of view, even though from the, let's say, the best manager at the company, even if they don't believe in the vision of the company, they will lose patience, and then they're gonna like quit the job or change their jobs. This is something in terms of the mindset I wanted to always like point out, to say is like, follow what you love. It's like a famous quote everyone is saying, but really, really find out the value that you want to bring to the world, or the impact. Just find a way and then stick to it, and then you will love what you do. Then you will grow, and then you can add to it. You can add, like the same thing on LookinLA when we started, was like just helping companies in terms of improving their business and their marketing. And then we find out, okay, now we can add another value. We can have a new product. We can promote the marketing strategy to people and to businesses, to say like, hey, you can use it. We can develop a strategy for you first. So it's not going to be always steady and like having like one service, for example, you can find, and again, like another more tools or like products to add to your company that can actually complete or support what you already do, right?
Yeah, I love that. I think that's exactly right.
Yeah. And okay, that was really, really great talk today. And then last is, what tips or advice do you have for everyone who is watching and listening to this in terms of like to have that impact they want to have?
Well, one, I'd say, and it's very much in line with what you just shared, especially for us. A lot of times as entrepreneurs, you'll go to a meeting with an investor and they say, what problem are you solving? I think it's too reductive. I think like the real question is, what value are you adding? It's a little bit different, and I think that's the question. Like, what value do you want to add to the world? Who are you meaningfully serving? What value are you adding? Do you really understand the people that you're trying to help or serve or support or engage? And there was a speaker. His name's Kanan. He's a singer-songwriter. He spoke at our conference at Harvard in 2011. And it was during the famine and drought in the Horn of Africa. And somebody during Q&A asked, he said, Kanan, collectively, hundreds of us here, we can reach millions of people. What is that one thing that we should do? Is it donating to UNICEF for bed nets? Like, what is that one thing? We'll all do it. We'll mobilize everyone. And Kanan looked back and he said, look, I'm paraphrasing a bit, but he said, look, so often when people try to help other people, they do it from a place of feeling superior to those they're trying to help. He said, if I could ask everyone to do one thing, it would be to learn about the culture and the people that you're trying to help, or learn about yourself and why you're doing what you're doing. I think that's probably the best advice I've heard through our work, and and a piece that I would pass on. If we get that right, and you really understand people and where they're at and what their aspirations are, you engage them with dignity, the dignity every person deserves, and you really understand why you're doing the work that you're doing, I think you can create a world-class company that has really deep, purposeful impact and really does change the world.
Solve a lot of problems.
Yeah, right, absolutely.
Right. Okay, thank you. That was a really, really great job. I hope we can have more podcasts with you. I think you're going to San Francisco and then you'll be in Boston. Maybe the next time you came to LA, we can have another podcast.
Done.
And thank you for coming again. And thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.